Great to have everybody here. Great to have everybody online. So, just a brief review while Sabrina's busy, real quick. The purpose of these lunch and learns is to bring people up to speed that all this stuff may be new for. However, it's a great review for people who have already been in this path for a long time, on this path for a long time. I don't want to say in the way, but you know what I mean. Because even, doing this as long as we have, Sabrina and I, as we review and prepare our notes, we inevitably learn something new ourselves. And so it's always good to review, to refresh, to learn something new. So today's topic is Tu Bishvat. You may have heard it a few different ways, but we're going to say it Tu Bishvat, Tu Bishvat, whatever. And Sabrina's going to kick us off here, and we're going to get started. We're going to tag team a couple of times here.
Okay. Shabbat Shalom. I'm Sabrina. And so as Darren said, this holiday that's coming up, we call it Tu Bishvat, okay? And we write it like this in English anyway, T-U, and then we've written it like this. You will also see it like this. And I know if you're online, and I'm going to get out of the way so you can see. So you'll see it like this or this. What does this mean? Why are we saying, what does this mean that we're saying? So whether you want to or not, I'm going to give you a quick little free Hebrew lesson to boost your learning today. So I don't want to overwhelm you, but at the same time, I think it's really cool to know this. The Hebrew language is like no other language, right? I mean, we should already know that. The Bible was written in this. This is what God spoke to Moses in, this language. But there's so much to the language, and the language is a holy language. And I'm going to demonstrate just a little example with this holiday, why we say Tu Bishvat. So unlike our language, English, we have letters and we have numbers. We have a whole different thing we write for a number, right? A whole different symbol set. But in Hebrew, the alphabet, the ABCs, are the numbers. So the first letter of the alphabet is Aleph, which is also number 1. If I want to write 1, I would write the Aleph. So on the one hand, that sounds could get really confusing, but it's really neat because then that means our words have a numerical value to them, and there's more lessons that come when you know that. So it's like another layer of learning when you know the numerical value of words. So anyway, let's get to the point. So I put the first 10 letters, which represent the first 10 numbers, right? So I know some of you are learning Hebrew, so you could say this with me if you want to. We have Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud or Yod. We say Yud when we teach the children here. So then what do we do for 11? Well, 11 becomes a combination of 10, which is Yud, and then 1, which is Aleph, which I wrote. And we know it's a number because of this little hash mark thing that you'll see written. It separates the letters so that you know it's a number. It's not a word, it's a number. So we got 11 is Yud, Aleph. 12, which makes sense, would be Yud and Beit. So 10 and 2, 10 and 3, 10 and 4, and then we don't do this. This is where the language demonstrates that it is holy. It's connected. It's a spiritual thing. There's a spiritual connection to the language. We do not write the Yud and then a Hey for the number 15. Who might have a guess why? So the Tetragrammaton, the 4-letter name of God, the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey, that would be, the Yud and the Hey would be part of his name, and we don't want to make it common So we change 15. We do not do it like this pattern. We change it to 9, which is this letter, tet, and then to make 15, we would do this letter. So it would be 9 and 6. Oh, let me just leave that for a second. So, and I'm going to go on to this one just to show you, this is definitely a freebie. This doesn't apply to today or to this lesson necessarily, but the same goes for the number 16, because if I do follow this pattern and I put a yud and then this is a vav, again, those are 2 letters from the tetragrammaton, and to protect God's name, divine name, we don't write it like that. We do the same little exception here where we use the tet, and then this would be this to make. Okay, it'd be 9 and 7. 9 and 7 for that one, and then for 15 would be 9 and 6. So, again, these are letters also, so they have a sound to them, right? So this is the one we're focusing on today, is this one right here. So if we were to say 15, it would be a different word, right? We would say eser chamish, I think. But when we write it with these letters, and if we were to say this, it would be 2. Okay? So 2 is where this comes from. So we're saying the 15th of the month of Shvat. Okay? And this is why we have these letters, 2, t, and this becomes a vowel u sound. And so that's where we get Tu Bishvat. Okay? And Shvat is the name of the month that we're in. And the b would be of. So it's like we say 4th of July. Now, most of the time we say July, like today's January 20th. We put the month and then the day. But in Hebrew, it's the day and then the month. So we would say the 15th of Shvat, and this is just kind of a slur, the Bishvat, okay? So Tu Bishvat. So if you have a handout, that is number 1. Tu Bishvat means the 15th of the month.
Do we have
Shvat.
anybody that did not get a handout? Everybody get handouts? Well, Baruch
Yes?
Hashem.
Okay, well, here's extra if we need them. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to remind ourselves of, if we can go back to like our first or second class, we talked about this, but it's a good reminder that on the Jewish calendar, there are how many new years? In 1 year, calendar year, there's how many?
4. Good.
We got 4.
Good.
4. Is that the consensus? That's correct. There are 4 new years on the Jewish calendar. Okay, let's review them one more time. We have what we're used to calling Rosh Hashanah. We refer to the 1st of Tishrei. Okay, and that is when the year changes number. It's the civil year. It's how we calculate the Shemitah, the sabbatical year. It's how we calculate the Jubilee year, the 50th year, the Sabbath of Sabbaths of the years. So, so Tishrei 1 is important as Rosh Hashanah, as one Rosh Hashanah. The next Rosh Hashanah, or New Year, is Nisan 1. Okay, Nisan 1. And that is the beginning of the counting of months. And that was in our Torah portion this week? This week. God said when the children of Israel came out of Egypt, he told them, this is the beginning of the months. So the holiday cycle, everything follows from Nisan 1. So in your Bible, from Exodus chapter 12 on, if you see a date, like in the book of, in Kings or later in Isaiah or Ezekiel, or you see a date, it says such and such in the such and such month. You count it from Nisan, okay? So Nisan is the beginning of the months. It's also the spiritual new year, okay? And that's I don't know if we'll get into it today, but that's significant, it being the spiritual new year. And then our next new year, our next Rosh Hashanah happens on Elul the 1st. Elul the 1st is the month right before Tishrei, okay? Elul happens right before Tishrei, and the first day of that month is the new year of, who can remember? No?
I'll give you a hint.
Meh. Meh. The animals, that's right.
Yeah, the cattle.
The cattle, the sheep.
The herds.
Okay, all the flocks and the herds. So the animals in the land of Israel, they have to be calculated as well to know how to tithe and how that functions in the temple system. So there has to be a demarcation of animals when they're born before this date or born after this date and how they're tithed. Okay, so Elul 1st is that date. And then it brings us to our 4th Rosh Hashanah in the year, and that is what we're studying today, Tu Bishvat. Okay, Tu Bishvat is the 4th new year, and it is the new year of the trees. Okay, that's the new year of the trees. I guess that's a blank, isn't there?
Yeah. Number 3.
Okay, number 3. So in Hebrew, we would say Rosh Hashanah Le'ilanot. Le'ilanot. So that's a word for trees, is ilan. And that's plural, so of or for the trees. Okay?
Le'ilanot is plural. Yeah.
Yeah, that's plural. Le'ilanot is plural. Okay, so Darren's going to talk about the breakdown of how Tu Bishvat works as the new year for the trees.
Right. Okay, so first of all, your next blank for blank 4 is the biblical foundation for the tithing laws. We're going to be dealing with tithing laws today. Exciting stuff, right? It's like learning about the IRS stuff, you know, great stuff. No. The biblical foundation for the tithing laws regarding fruit trees is found in Leviticus 19, verses 23 through 25. Okay? And I'm going to read that for you now. So Leviticus 19, 23 through 25. It says, "When you come into the land and plant any kind of tree for food, you shall regard its fruit as forbidden. 3 years it shall be forbidden to you. It must not be eaten. And in the 4th year all its fruit shall be holy, an offering of praise to the Lord. But in the 5th year you may eat of its fruit to increase its yield for you. I am the Lord your God." So there's several things going on behind the scenes in this passage that we're going to have to extract to be able to know what's going on here and how this ties into anything that we're saying. Okay, the first is that this forbidden fruit, we're not talking about Eden. Okay, we're not talking about going back to the garden and saying this is forbidden fruit. We're talking about fruit that may not be eaten because of a specific reason. The Torah actually uses a really weird language to describe this, okay? It actually uses this phrase, and let's see if I can, this is big enough for me to read here. It uses the phrase, va'ar latam orlato, okay? Va'ar latam orlato, which literally means, consider it as uncircumcised foreskin. It is very strange, right? Okay, and so this phrase, what does it mean? You know, it uses this phrase, and so what it's trying to say is basically this has not been dealt with properly, and it's natural growth that has come about, and in order for you to partake of it, something has to change. Okay, and so. This is the way it's working, and we just go by the verse here to know what happens next. It says that for 3 years, it's orla to you, it's uncircumcised to you. Basically means it's off limits. It's forbidden, right? It must not be eaten. There's a clear indicator right there. The 4th year, this translation says the 4th year, all its fruit shall be holy, an offering of praise to the Lord. Well, guess what that means in translation? So the sages have translated this to mean and understand it to mean The thing that are holy or eaten is considered like terumah, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. And where does that get eaten? It gets eaten in Jerusalem. You have to come up to Jerusalem to eat it. So, first 3 years of the fruit tree, no eating. Okay, just remember that. Sort of like no touchy, but no eating. And the 4th year, you can eat it, but it has to be done a certain way. You have to bring the fruit up to Jerusalem and then eat it there in holiness. You have to be in a probably state of reachable purity. I didn't actually look that up. The 5th year, you may eat of the fruit to increase its yield for you on the Lord. Okay? So basically, 5th year and going forward, it's just normal. It's full on. Okay? You can eat as much of that as you want. Yes. Consider its foreskin as uncircumcised as your blank for number 5. And so this is the way it works. And so you'd have this tree that would be bearing this fruit for a number of years, but then you got to figure out, well, when did it start producing fruit, and in what year, and all this kind of stuff. And it can get confusing. And so biblically, agriculture in the land of Israel is important, and there are a lot of detailed laws, both biblical laws and legal interpretations that surround it. And so Israel operates on a 7-year agricultural cycle. This is your next blank on number 6, concluding with Shemitah, or the sabbatical year. You guys heard that, right? And as we can see in this passage, even keeping track of the cycle of fruit production of a tree is important. Okay, and this is considered the Ora Cycle for the trees. So the first 3 years of the fruit are forbidden. That's your first blank on 7a, as we said earlier. 4th year, the fruit is eaten in Jerusalem. That's your next blank. And then in the 5th year and on, it can be eaten anywhere at any time. Yes.
By in Jerusalem, does that mean like in the walled city?
In the walled city, yes.
Similar as like if it was a sacrifice?
Correct. Yep. Okay, and so let's talk about this tithe system and how this turns into this and why this specific date got chosen, okay? So when most people think of tithing outside of a Jewish context, we normally associate it with like giving 1/10 of our income to church or ministry or something like that, right? However, the biblical tithing system is really, it's just completely agricultural. That's what it's based on. And not only that, it's based on the agricultural system in Israel, not outside of Israel. The Torah contains a complex system of tithing that's roughly broken down into 3 parts. Okay, so our next section here in number 8, these are the 3 parts that we're going to go over of this tithing system. The first one is called Teruma. And I gave you the scripture here that you can look that up, and where it talks about this is Numbers 15, 18 through 19. And the way it breaks down is roughly 2% or 1 out of 50 of the fruit, of the produce of vegetables and fruit are given to the Kohanim. These are the priests, the Kohanim, Kohanim. There we go.
Yeah.
Or the priests. That's the Hebrew word for priests. So basically 2% of what you've produced from agriculturally goes to the Kohanim or the priests.
What does teruma mean?
Teruma means separated, I believe, out.
Portion.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so the next portion, the next type we have is maser, and it is from Numbers 18, verses 21 through 26. And basically the way this works out is what it implies. Maser means 10th, okay? And so 1/10 of your produce, of your fruit and vegetables, are given away. And the way it breaks down is different ways for different years. There's a 7-year cycle, like we talked about, and in certain years of those things, different things happen. The first and the 4th year, the 2nd and the 5th year.
You want me to make a chart?
Sure, go for it.
Okay.
And the 3rd and the 6th year are the same,
Just like
and
right
then
on
the
the
7th
wall.
year is different. It's
On
like a
the
menorah, right? And so the one called Maser Rishon, which means the first tithe, that is given to the Levim or the Levites. You can put either one, and that's your next blank there in section I. I mean small Roman numeral 1. And then you have Maser Sheni, a second tithe that's taken from the produce remaining after both the Teruma and the Maser Rishon are taken. So basically, you give your first parts. You gave the Teruma, you give the Maser Rishon, and then this Maser Sheni was in addition to that, okay? This was taken to Jerusalem and eaten during the festivals by you. Seems weird to separate a tithe and then enjoy it yourself, right? But this is the way it worked. It's that fourth year of the produce of the tree that we just talked about. That it has that same principle. Another option is if you live really far away and the produce is going to spoil, your food is going to spoil on the way, you can actually sell it and take the money to Jerusalem and buy, according to Deuteronomy 14, whatever your heart desires, okay, to celebrate. So you can look that up in Deuteronomy 14. And then the last one, we have Maser Oni, and this is given for the welfare of the poor. So Maser Oni, I don't think I told you, Maser Sheni means second tithe, but Maser Oni means the tithe for the poor. And this is given during the 3rd and 6th years of the cycle, and it is given in place of the Maser Sheni. Okay, it's not in addition to, it's not separate from, it's completely replaced during this 3rd and 6th year, correct. So if you want to look up here what Sabrina's got going.
So we're talking about the second tithe, the Sheni. So there's always the Rishon, the first one, that's a given every year, but the Sheni, the second one, changes. So like Darren said, years 1, 2, 4, and 5, you keep yourself, but you have to go to Jerusalem to eat. And then years 3 and 6, it goes to the poor. And there's not any tithing in the 7th year.
Right.
If you can't go to Jerusalem, what is the solution?
That is a good question.
What does the Torah say?
I don't think the Torah says. You're going to have to look at Jewish law to find that
That's
out.
homework, I guess.
Which I don't know. Yeah, that's your homework. You come back next week and tell us all about it. By the way, Jeremy, can you hand me one of those volumes of Talmud? Just any one. Just pick one randomly. Yeah. Okay. FYI, this is why this exists. Talmud and the Mishnah, to answer questions like that. Because there's always going to be questions like that, right? I mean, especially, it doesn't really apply to us now, right? But it did, and it one day will again. To some people somewhere, if they're living in the land of Israel and so forth. And so this exists, and this is why this thing is so huge, because it goes through all of those scenarios, dealing with that kind of stuff, okay? 73 volumes. So go ahead and pick up a copy. Okay. Let's see, where were we here? Orla. Okay, so what does all this have to do with Tu Bishvat? So, in order to figure out how old the fruit is, basically, you have to have a start point somewhere. Okay, just like any kind of New Year, we talked about New Year's for cattle, New Year's for this and that and everything. You guys we have a fiscal New Year here. We have a school New Year, and so we know when those things start and stop. But what about fruit? Fruit produces year-round, depending on what type of trees we have. Okay, and so we have to figure out where to draw the line to know how old this fruit is. And it's not according to the age of the tree. And we'll get into that in a second, but it's on the fruit. Okay? So Tu Bishvat is a cutoff point for tithing on fruits of trees. If the tree's fruits begin to ripen before, and this is your first blank for number 9, before Tu Bishvat, then it's considered to have experienced its first year of Orla. Okay? Even if it was just bloomed, a few weeks before Tu Bishvat or whatever. I mean, if the fruit became ripe a week before Tu Bishvat, whatever. It's already experienced its first year.
So Tu Bishvat would mark the end of its first year.
Right.
Okay.
Correct. That's a better way of saying it. Tu Bishvat will have marked the end of its first year. This is similar to how the reign of kings was enumerated biblically. If they came into office, say at the end of Adar, Then when Nisan first hit, no, actually that'd be Tishrei, wouldn't it? Because there are coronations in Tishrei. So anyway.
But the counting starts in Nisan 1.
With the kings? Okay, so I was correct the first time. Then they would have, that goes as a year of their reign. Even if it was a day. Yeah. Okay. So, next blank after Tu Bishvat, the tree is considered to be in the second year in the cycle of Orla.
What is Orla?
Orla is the cycle of what's going on with this tree. It literally means uncircumcised.
Oh, okay.
Great question, though.
It's usually translated forbidden.
Yes.
It's forbidden. But the Hebrew word means uncircumcised, literally.
Yeah. This cycle and counting has nothing to do with the age of the tree. That's your next blank. But only which year in the Oress cycle it's in. Now we have, go ahead. You have a question?
Does the Ora Cycle restart in the 80th?
No. It's actually independent of the Shemitah cycle. So it's independent of the 7 years. So it's based on actually the tree. So this is where you have, like, you'll have these trees that have been planted this year, and then, these trees may start producing then, this tree, so it all depends on when the tree starts producing. It's when that cycle starts.
Okay.
Has nothing to do with anything else that's going on.
Okay, all right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. It took me a long time to get that through my head.
So it still has some origin in when the tree was planted, or when it starts producing fruit.
I started saying when it starts producing fruit. That's when it counts, because the tree could be planted,
Yeah, because it may take
doesn't
2 or
matter.
3 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not considering the age. It has nothing to do with the age of the tree.
When it starts producing.
Really?
Yes.
So it's actually the first ripening fruit.
Correct.
That would be year 1.
Right.
It's very similar to how we do fruit and nut agriculture in the country today.
Okay.
Is for example, commercial peach farmers, they understand based on peach trees that you don't receive any fruit from that tree until the 5th or 6th year.
There you go.
And it has to do when a tree starts producing fruit, those first few years of fruit are unedible. And if you harvest them, you're damaging future production.
There you go.
And so you have to wait the requisite time for the tree to produce the fruit before you start. Same thing with
Yep.
pecan trees.
There you go.
And pecan trees can live 100 years, and peach trees 20 and 25, but it's the same thing. It takes a period of time for them to start producing.
And then you have your pruning and different things that work with that and everything.
Yeah, the pruning has to happen in those early years, right? And so it gives us that concept of uncircumcised, circumcised.
Yeah.
It's like there's got to be this cutting off, this pruning, so it'll produce fruit. So more fruit, better fruit, good fruit, whatever.
And some of the old farmers still observe a 7th year of not farming the land.
Really?
That, like my dad growing up, my grandfather, my dad, they farmed, and so my dad explained to me, he said every 7th year we let the field alone to lay. We don't farm it on that, so they would have to keep, they would rotate the crops, they'd have to keep up with the various fields, because on the 7th year they would not farm that. They would let it go.
That's pretty cool.
Very, very cool.
Answer a question online real quick. Elena, the 73 volume is the Talmud, and it's based on the Mishnah. So the Talmud is the Mishnah and the Gemara together. So let's continue on real quick. So why the 15th of Shavuot? Why not the 1st of Shavuot? Why not? So the rainy season in Israel is generally somewhere between Tishrei and Shavuot. Okay, we actually start praying for rain when? At the end of Sukkot. We don't want it to rain while we're staying in the Sukkah, But anyway, we start praying for rain and that's towards the end of Tishrei. And most fruit trees will either have finished producing by Shavuot or will be just about to start. Okay? Therefore, Shavuot was seen as the time between the old crop and the new, and was designated as a demarcation of the life of fruit trees for the purpose of tithing. And this actually led to a debate between the school of Hillel and the school of Shammai. You've heard of these guys before, Beit Hillel, Beit Shammai. Now, this doesn't mean Hillel, the person, or Shammai, the person we're debating, means they're students after them, okay? So Beit Hillel means the school of Hillel. Beit Shammai means the school of Shammai. And Beit Shammai said that this demarcation date should be the first of Shavuot, excuse me. And Hillel, school of Hillel, said no, it needs to be the 15th of Shavuot. And so they argued about it. There's a bunch of details involved in it. And eventually, who do you think won out?
Oh,
Yeah, Hillel almost always wins out, school of Hillel. But there's actually good reason for that. If you want to look that up, that's a great little homework lesson there. But it's technical and detailed, and we just don't have time to get into it, okay? Bottom line is that Tu Bishvat is the new year for trees for purposes of how fruit is treated in regard to the tithing system, okay? And like we said, if an example of a fruit begins to ripen before Tu Bishvat, then it's considered to already have been through a year of that process. If it ripens after Tu Bishvat, then that starts its first year, okay? Otherwise, it's going to go into the second year, and then we'll go there. Okay, so some spiritual insights before I hand it over to Sabrina, and I've taken up too much time already. The Bible compares man to trees, and I think you're actually, yeah.
Oh, compares trees to...
It should be the opposite, because I have a typo. So trees to man or man to trees. It actually is man to trees. And some passages are Psalm 1:3 and Psalm 128, verse 3, if you want to write those down.
Say those again.
Psalm 1, verse 3, Psalm 128, verse 3, and there are several others we can go into. And we've got this, show them that book.
Yeah.
So if you want to study more for next year, this is probably not time to get this now, but this little book is really good. It's called Plant by First Fruits of Zion, and it's a Tu Bishvat anthology. It's a bunch of different articles and different things relating to Tu Bishvat, and it's some good reading. And so generally, during Tu Bishvat, around the time of Tu Bishvat, there's really not a lot of foliage on trees. I mean, if you look around us, what do we see? Mostly dead trees, right? And therefore, this time is something that, for the most part of trees, like there's an exception, like lemon trees, they produce pretty much year-round. There's a few others. But for the most part, we're dealing with something that's not tangible, cannot be seen. I was listening to Rabbi Wawa Jacobson this week as I was preparing for this, and he, I think, really hit the nail on the head when he talked about this. He said thematically that Tu Bishvat, and this is one of your blanks, which one here?
11.
11. Tu Bishvat is a celebration of hidden potential. You like that? Okay. Hidden potential. Because what are we talking about? We're talking about, first of all, we're talking about seed that was planted who knows how long ago. Then we're talking about this tree becoming a sapling. We're talking about pulling nourishment from the ground, from the soil, from the rain, and all that kind of stuff, and creating something, new life, producing this new life. It's sprouting, and it has to be mature, and then it's finally going to give forth fruit. But we don't know exactly when, okay? So it's all this hidden potential, and then that's what's going to kickstart this whole thing. And it reminds me a lot of what the author of Hebrews talks about faith. You guys are familiar with this passage. Now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. For by it the people of old received their commendation. Okay? So this is a little bit of faith, especially if you're planting fruit trees, because you have to wait for years. Like Jarrett was saying, you wait for years. You plant something and you don't know if you're going to have a good crop or if they're all going to be killed or whatever, but you'll find that out years later. And it's a long-term investment. Yeshua said this in John 12, "Truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls to the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. And whoever loves his life loses it. Whoever hates his life in this world will keep it for eternal life. If anyone serves me, he must follow me, and where I am, there will my servant be also. If anyone serves me, the Father will honor him." And so this is a reminder of how this minor holiday that seemingly has nothing to do with our day-to-day lives, it seems completely irrelevant, can have deep spiritual roots and applications in our lives. The last thing that I want to share, and I'll hand it over, is this whole principle of reaping and sowing and reaping. You know, especially in America, in the United States, we live in a frozen food microwave society, and we expect everything instant, right? It's like, well, I'll put my coffee in for 15 seconds or whatever. That's not hot. Something must be broken, you know? And exactly, took too long. And very few of us have the knowledge, much less the patience to plant a crop in one season and wait for it to produce a harvest in another, especially trees. You know, how difficult, like we said, would it be to wait for years and years and years and years only to find out whether it's good or not, you know? And so Tu Bishvat is a reminder of this, that we need to plant seeds now for the fruit in our lives that we want to harvest later. So what fruit in your lives of godliness, of righteousness, and so forth, do you want to plant in your lives? You know, do you want to reap a harvest or have God enjoy that harvest later on in your life? Plant the seeds now. Go ahead.
So I'm going to tell a story of a rabbi. I don't know the name of the rabbi, and I don't know the time frame on this.
His name is...
All I know is the story, so I apologize.
Yeah.
But I heard it as well in preparing for this class, and it goes along with this idea of being intentional, you know, being intentional in our lives. You know, what do we want to reap? You know, what do we want? Start now. Either we're at the seed stage, or maybe, you know, we're at some stage along the way. But the story of this rabbi was remarkable, and just a picture of how if we can see the end goal and then start working backwards to what's the very first thing to do in order to accomplish that end goal. So this was a time when, again, I don't remember the time frame, I'm sorry, but Torah was scarce in the Jewish people. The diaspora had happened, the Jewish people had been dispersed, and Torah was dying. It needed to help, right? Torah learning needed lots of help. It was in a dire situation. So this particular rabbi took it upon himself. It was his goal to ignite and get Torah to spread again and Torah learning to be prevalent. So what he did was he actually planted something. He planted flaxseed. He grew flax. He harvested the flax. He took the flax, and I don't know if you know this, but flax creates a fiber, right? And we get linen from it. But this particular thing he did with it was he made nets. So he made nets from the flax that he grew. He took the nets and he used them to capture deer, to trap deer, because in a kosher setting, deer you don't shoot with an arrow or what, they have to be caught and da-da-da-da. So anyway, so he catches the deer with these nets in order to kill them. As a side note, he gave the meat to the poor to make it for the animal's life to be useful. But then he took the hide from the deer and created the parchment to create Torah scrolls. And he wrote the Torah scrolls, or had them written. I don't remember which one it was. But the point is, the Torah scrolls were written, then he used those Torah scrolls that he did all of this preparation for to then go into towns and teach Torah. And I believe his method was he taught one person, like Genesis or Bereshit. The next student, he taught Exodus or Shemot, and so forth. And he just taught one thing to one student, and then he told them to teach each other what they learned. Then he took the Mishnah, the 6 tractates of the Mishnah, taught one tractate per student, and then said, now teach what you've learned. And then he would do that from town to town. And Torah was revived. So that was just, to have that kind of long-term thinking and to be able to go, okay, God, what do I need to do first in order to accomplish this? And so this holiday has really deepened for me. I mean, we've celebrated it since FFOZ put out their first Haggadah on it, which was 2011. But really, you know, when you teach something, you learn more. So I'm blessed by getting to teach this class, because that's what's really hit home for me this year is, you know, and it could be something simple like, I don't know, you want to help the needy that you see on the side of the road. So what's the first, you know, what's something you can do to generate a way to help that, to accomplish that? Or you want to increase your Torah learning, you know, well, maybe it's then the first thing you need to do is get up 15 minutes earlier today, or, you know, in your day. Whatever, it's like, you know, what are those little things that can lead and build to accomplish the big things? And then I don't have this is again off the top of my head, so you guys can look it up, but Yeshua taught us about the talents, right? We all have something. We're all been given something, you know, and we can do something with it, you know. So it may not have to be something we create out of our head. It's just what comes naturally to us. That's a talent that we have that we can produce fruit from in our lives, and seek the Lord on that. So I want to talk about how do we observe this holiday, because it used to simply be part of the temple system, right? It wasn't necessarily a holiday per se, but it was just, but it became a holiday, especially after the temple was destroyed. So it needed to be remembered and commemorated, and so fruits, right, began to be eaten on this day. Various fruits of the tree. So, and then it wasn't until, where are we? Oh, so one of the biggest, if you can't do anything else on this day, if you can get a hold of the 7 species of the land of Israel that's listed in Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 7 and 8, those 7 species or 7 kinds of produce of the land of Israel are wheat, barley, grapes, and figs. I guess these are your blanks. Figs, pomegranates, olives, and dates. The Bible may say honey, but it's referring to date honey, not bee honey. So wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, and dates. And the kids learned a song last year. 7 wonderful fruits, 7 wonderful fruits. Okay, so there's a cute little song to teach your children those 7 fruits, or 7 types of food. So those are eaten because, again, they tie to the land. So this holiday is all about Israel. It's about trees, but not just any trees. It's the trees of Israel. Mm-hmm. And so this holiday ties us to the land. And when we go through the Haggadah Wednesday night at our Seder here, it's going to tie us to the land. Okay, so speaking of the Seder, so in the 16th century, a Seder was developed in the town of Sved, however you say that the correct way, I don't know, in Israel. The sages, the mystical sages in that time created this tradition of it's likened unto a Passover Seder, and Seder means order. So it's just an ordered meal, things that we do in order and make it a meal. And so it's like the Passover Seder in that there will be 4 cups of wine or juice of the vine. So 4 cups of wine. Each cup of wine will progress in color from fully white to fully red. And this is to represent the 4 seasons of the year as they change from winter to spring to summer and then fall. So our first cup that we will take in the Seder is fully white, which represents winter time. The next one is white with a few drops of red. The next one is half white and half red. And then the next one is red with a few drops of white. There's more to this progression, but we're not going to get into that. We don't have time. There's kind of a mystical side of this progression, and it will be in this Haggadah, and you can see a little more of that. But just to say what a Haggadah is a book that's like, it's just a little book, a special book for a special holiday that leads you through. And so we use one at Passover, and we now have them for Tu Bishvat. So FFOZ has this one called Bloom that we will use Wednesday night.
Yeah, like Tim said, Haggadah comes from word.
Telling, yeah.
Right.
Sorry, telling is really what it means. It's a telling. So I won't go into this. Okay. So it is customary, number 15, to eat an in-season, bless you, fresh fruit. Fresh fruit, not a dried fruit, but a fresh fruit that's in season that you have not eaten yet this year, to recite the Shehekianu blessing. So
This year meaning January 1?
no,
Oh, okay.
sorry, since Tishrei, okay? So since the beginning of this year, 5784. Okay, so again, this if you can do this, that's great. Find a fruit that you haven't eaten yet this year since Rosh Hashanah of this year, and you can say the special blessing. This holiday is all about blessing God for His provision, and this is a way, eating something new.
As a reminder, what is the Shehekianu blessing?
Shehekianu is the blessing that thanks God for sustaining us and bringing us to this season. And so it's tied with every holiday. There's an opportunity to say the Shehekianu. This is a side note. So a lot of times, like when it comes Passover time or Shavuot, Pentecost, or Sukkot, or any of these holidays, if you can get something new, it can even be a piece of clothing or a piece of jewelry. So there is a tradition. I'll just throw this in.
Guys, close your ears.
No, this is good. This will enhance your marriage. Perk up your ears. Get your wife something. Get her a new piece of something, a new something. Let her say, or tell her to go get her a new pair of shoes, and she will be like, I love this holiday. So, I want to do this every year. I get a new pair of shoes every no. So, but Shehekianu is an opportunity to bless God for sustaining us and bringing us to this season, and it involves something new. And with this holiday, it's a new, fresh fruit. So go for something exotic. Maybe you haven't had dragon fruit this year, or star fruit, or
Jackfruit.
jackfruit.
That's a good one.
And we won't say that. What's the stinky one?
Durian.
Thank
yeah.
you. Ah,
Durian.
durian
Smells
fruit.
like
We'll
Smells
pass.
sweet, but tastes like something really yummy.
So this is a time, and again, this is fruit from the trees, okay? So we've got fruit that comes out of the ground, like pineapple and strawberries. Those aren't considered fruit of the tree, right? Those don't come from a tree.
Blueberry is.
A blueberry is, so we'll go over that in just a minute. So the next, number 16, to evoke the ha'etz, the tree blessing, borei pri ha'etz, we're thanking God for the fruit of the tree. There are 4 categories of fruits. One's not actually has fruit in it, but there's categories, 4 different ones that we will use during the Seder and eat from. So the first category are fruits that are with inedible outside. So that's A, 16A. We have fruits that are inedible on the outside but edible on the inside. Examples of that would be pomegranates, walnuts, almonds, pistachios, oranges. Okay, we don't eat the outside, but we eat the inside. That's the first group of fruits we eat. The second group we eat are fruits that are edible on the outside, but has an inedible inside, like a pit. Okay, yes, olives, dates, apricots, peaches, cherries, plums.
By the way, in that first category, bananas do not count.
Right, bananas, fun fact, bananas are not a tree. Bananas are a plant, okay? They are not fruit of the tree.
It dies down and renews, and so it's not actually a tree.
Yeah, so it doesn't get that blessing, bore priha eitz. It gets a different blessing. Okay, number 3, those fruits are the ones that are completely edible, inside and outside, like grapes, figs, raspberries, blueberries, and blackberries. Those are considered fruits from the tree, those berries.
Considered fruit from the tree.
Because it has a woody stalk. Even though we wouldn't call it botanically a tree.
Yeah, okay. All right. That makes sense.
And then the 4th category in our Seder that is not, we won't eat anything. Oh, go ahead.
Are we sure about the blackberry?
We can check.
Because I don't think blackberry wine can be.
It's
It's not hagafen. That's the problem. It's haze. Never mind. Okay, we're done.
Shekel. So the 4th category is we don't actually eat any fruit in the Bloom Haggadah, wherever that went, but we do fragrant smells. So I just put, these are different, you can do flower petals, but I put some ideas from trees. So cinnamon, clove, bay leaf. I said leaf, didn't I?
I corrected on there.
Okay, thanks. Lavender, vanilla. Vanilla actually comes from a tree, and eucalyptus. Those are just ideas for your smell when you get to that part. So in Israel, never been in Israel for Tu Bishvat. I don't know if anybody else has been in Israel for Tu Bishvat. Anybody online get to experience Tu Bishvat in the land? But
Nope.
It's modern day observance is probably more similar to like our Earth Day or Arbor Day. It's getting outside, it's planting trees, planting, very environmental and ecological focused, which is a good thing. You know, God is concerned about how we take care of the earth, and we should be too. But I wanted to point out, let me see what, okay. So in 1901, there's an organization that was founded in Israel. In Hebrew, it's Keren Kayemet LeYisrael, or the KKL. And in the United States, it's known as the Jewish National Fund, or JNF. So this was founded as an arm of Zionism to lay the foundations for agriculture and ecology and more. They do lots of things. They do water stuff, water stuff and all kinds of things, and they founded settlements. Anyway, very instrumental in the land of Israel. And you can go to their website, jnf.org, and you can donate money to them, and they will plant a tree in Israel with your donation. And one tree is $18, so.
And they do memorial.
You can do memorials through them, or in honor of people. You can plant trees any time of the year, but it's a custom and a tradition to plant a tree for Tu Bishvat. So again, that's jnf.org, and I thought I'd just do a plug for them because they are an amazing organization, and these are just some statistics I found on their website. Since 1901, and this is just the land of Israel, they have planted more than 250 million trees. They have built over 250 reservoirs and dams. They've developed over 250,000 acres of land. They have created more than 2,000 parks. So they've provided the infrastructure for over 1,000 communities. And they've connected, of course, children and young adults can go through them to do missions in Israel. You can do all kinds of things through them to connect Jewish people to the land of Israel and their heritage. They've done a lot for that. So anyway, that's a really neat thing to be able to do, is plant a tree in Israel. So a few last little customs, not little, but just, I don't have anything on your paper, but you can jot them down if you're interested. So eating carob from the carob tree is a tradition, and there's some neat reasons to that.
Grab one out of the backyard.
So carob isn't really readily available, but you can get little carob nibs at, the little nibs that are really
health food
good.
stores and
They're
stuff, yeah.
nice and healthy, and they're fun, and so maybe go to the health food store and find some carob nibs to add to your Tu Bishvat Seder. Question?
Would cacao or coffee,
Yes.
those would coming from trees?
Yes. Oh, if you didn't, I don't know if you heard Karen. She said, she asked if cacao or coffee would be considered fruit of the tree, and yes.
Coffee's a storm.
But not coffee that you drink. So if you ate the coffee bean
Right.
or made something from the beans that you actually consume the
fruit?
beans, then you could probably do that, even though there's going to be technicalities, could be shayakol. But coffee specifically is not going to count as
The
fruit of the
drink.
tree, like
You
coffee
have
that,
as an aroma.
like a drink.
But for the aroma
Right,
part,
for the aroma,
yes.
yeah, you can
yeah.
do that.
Espresso,
I smell it now.
espresso beans, chocolate covered espresso.
There
Oh,
you go.
We gotta have them.
Just torch it.
That's our +1 this year. I gotta have some chocolate covered coffee beans.
Yeah.
That'll spice up our Seder plate. Huh? So it's also tradition if you could save your etrog from Sukkot and preserve it, make preserves out of it or sugar slices, then you eat it for Tu Bishvat. Okay, so that's neat. It's also an opportunity to pray for the future crop of the etrog, of the etrogim that we use at Sukkot, the big lemon fruit that we use at Sukkot, because we want to have a good crop of beautiful fruit that we can have for Sukkot. The Arizal, which is Rabbi Isaac Luria, he instituted the tradition of eating 15 varieties of fruit on Tu Bishvat. So he set the bar high to try to eat 15 different kinds of fruit. And you can remember that because it's the 15th of Shabbat, 15 fruits. Kind of makes it easy, right? So I didn't count the number of fruits that I listed on our little thing, but I don't know if we can count the smells, but the things that we actually eat, I don't know if that's 15. Somebody can count that, but we can add to it if we didn't make it.
You're actually over a little bit.
Over? All right. So
Nice.
if we do at least that, you're
Unless you take off blackberries.
those are
I
questions.
think blackberry's good.
Okay.
Blackberry's good.
You have 15.
And one other fun little thing that I saw to share is if we plant now, if we plant some parsley, we might have it could be ready for our Passover Seder to use at our Seder.
So,
that might
Plant and
plant now and see if you can grow
Right.
your parsley that you would use for your Passover Seder. That would be kind of neat.
Very good.
Yeah. So that's the end of.
So this is our official. Well, you 2 o'clock on the dot.
on the
Good
dot.
job on the dot. Okay.
Where do you see that?
So-
Oh,
right there.
there it is, the
Okay,
time.
so this is our
Wow.
official ending of the class. We don't want to keep you guys. We want to respect your time, but we will be hanging around to answer questions. We don't know how many we can answer, but we'll try. But if you need to leave, now is a great time. So good to have you guys with us. And we'll open it up to questions. Thank you, guys.
Please visit our website, shalommacon.org, to learn more about us, join our live services, access other teachings, sign up for our newsletter, join our private network that will connect you with our greater community from around the world, or contribute to the work of Shalom Macon. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to connecting with you.